All right, so we're gonna chase, like I said last week, we're gonna chase a very, very, very big rabbit. Okay, today. That's what today is all about, and it is a lot of information. So I'm going to ask that I know that there's going to be things said that you're going to want to ask a whole lot of questions about. But I'm still going to try to run through this as quickly as possible. And what we're going to cover today is titled Pendulum. Okay? There's a reason we're going to cover it. Okay? So believe me, there's a reason. But what I'm going to tell you is we're going to cover this book, Pendulum. Okay? It's Pendulum. It's how past generations shape and our present and predict future. Written by Williams and Drew, Vanguard Press in 2012. I want to make sure that everybody gets their due credit because what I'm about to share with you is not mine. Okay, and I want you to make sure. I want to make sure you understand that I'm taking no credit for this, except that I read the book. I will say this. Other than the Bible, okay, this book has probably guided me in ministry more than any other book that I've ever read. All the leadership books that I've read, obviously not theology because we learn a lot from theology. What I'm talking about is how we're going to do things. This book has enlightened me quite a bit, okay? I can tell you right now that I'm probably going to say some things that you're going to want to argue with, okay? When we start going through this. Because it is hard to kind of understand. I read this book probably 6 years ago and have been thinking about it for 6 years, okay? Wow, I can see some things that they said, okay? But first thing I want to say is Pendulum is not a Christian book, but it is written by confessing Christians. They use a lot of biblical arguments. They use a lot of Bible to support because the Bible has a lot of descriptions of our past, of humans. Okay, it covers a group of people. It documents their history very well, better than most people's history has been documented. Okay, so they believe that the Bible is a true story, is not a made-up fiction, that it is an actual documented history of a group of people. Well, that helps them. Okay, so it's not a Christian book. Pendulum is a social science book that tracks human behavior and thought processes. That's its purpose. Okay, it's going to look at sociology and not psychology. Okay, so we might want to start thinking of some of these things that are going to be presented in a psychological, because most of us, if you were in college, probably took some sort of psychology, but you may not have taken a sociology, okay? You might have taken some sort of anthropology, and that deals in sociology some, but that's what this is. It's a social science book that tracks human behavior and thought processes. Pendulum's claim is that human behavior and thought processes are on an 80-year cycle. That's their claim, right up front, okay? That the way we think today, in 80 years, will change to something else, but will change back to the way we think today, okay? Now, what I want to say is that doesn't mean every topic they think the same thing. What it is it's about a collective, okay? So what they did is they used the pendulum, okay, to explain their entire theory. Okay, so what does a pendulum do? swings back and forth, right? So they say that our thought processes, our social behavior is on a 80-year cycle, meaning that if we're at the top here, to swing all the way here and back is 80 years. To get from here to here is 40 years. Okay? So what we're going to do today is we are discussing this to help us track the thought processes of the last 120 years, which is what we're about to go into in our history, our Baptist history. Okay? We're going to enter the 1900s. 1900 was over 120 years ago. Okay? So the last 120 years have really affected the way the church functions and what we do and how we do things. And so we're going to begin to look at that, but what we're going to look at, the reason I'm giving you this is so that we can see why they did what they did on a sociology level, on a sociological level. Okay? So the first thing is we should not think of this in terms of liberal and conservative. Okay? It's not one side we think more liberally and one side we think more conservatively. It doesn't work that way. Liberal and conservative thoughts are a lot of times individualistic, but they function underneath this pendulum. Okay? So what we have is what society thinks is more important, the group or the individual. What do we think is more important? What is more interesting to us on a sociological level? Is it the group or is it the individual? Does the group change things or does the individual change things? Okay? And so this thought process is, for them, is on this 80-year swing, and we're going to illustrate this, okay? So conservative and liberal thinking can function under what society as a whole is thinking, okay? So you can have individualistic liberal thinking, individualistic group thinking, or individualistic conservative. You can have group liberal thinking and group conservative thinking. Okay, so it's not, don't think of this in terms of liberal and conservative. Okay, those are separate issues from what we're talking about today. What we're talking about is how society thinks as a whole. Does it mean that every single person has this thought? No. It means that it's held by the majority. That the majority of the people are going to think this way, think in these terms. And I think you're going to see it, okay, when I show this to you, okay? So what they have is they're going to say an 80-year cycle, okay? From one side, from the height of what they'll call a we thinking to the height of what they call a me thinking is 40 years, and then back to a we. So from we to we is an 80-year cycle. So they have this laid out, and it's not done evenly, which I'm sorry, those of us with a little bit of OCD, it drives us crazy, okay? Because it's all on the thirds, okay? Here's what I want us to see before we get to that. At the height of the we, the thinking is, my group is good, your group is not. My tribe is right, your tribe is not. Okay? So it's the height of a we is group thinking. As we move down, the thinking changes. So as the pendulum starts to swing back to a we, back to a me, as we move down, the thinking changes to my group is okay, your group is okay. Right? So collectively, my group's fine, your group's fine. We'll accept each other. And then as we move up into a me, we begin to think my situation is not as good as your situation. We begin to think in these cycles. As we move down from the me, so coming across the bottom there, so move down from a me and move into a we, the thinking is my situation and your situation are messed up. Okay? Neither one of us is doing well. And then back into my group is good and your group is not. So let's illustrate this through the last 80 years. Okay? So, that's the OCD part. It's on the 3s. I don't know why it's on the 3s. Why isn't it on the 5s? Okay? I don't know. That's just what these guys have come up with, and it's on the 3s. So we're going to use it on the 3s. Okay? So let's look at 1943. So what we just said, we're going to start to illustrate. We're going to start to look at. Okay? So what is happening in 1943?
World at war.
World War II. Okay? World War II. At the height of the last we, Nazi Germany was killing 6 million Jews, and that was under fascism, a conservative groupthink. Okay? Because fascism tries to bring things back to, we want this to be strong. It's a conservative movement that is dealt in big government. Okay? So that's fascism is conservatism at its extreme. You can argue with me. You can say, well, that's not what I think is a conservative. Listen, I'm just telling you what was going on, okay? So fascism is groupthink at the extreme. Okay? We in the United States, we're also in a group thinking state. But we were thinking liberty and freedom versus fascism and communism. So at the height of a we, mankind has devastating wars and people die. That's what happens at the height of a we. Or around a we. Let's ask this. What was happening 80 years before that in 1863? What was happening? A civil war that was started in 1861. Okay? 80 years before 1863, what was happening? The Revolutionary War. And what was the sides in the Civil War? The North and the South. Our group is good, your tribe is not. Revolutionary War. My tribe is good, your tribe is not. Okay? We go to war at the heights of we's. Okay, you can see on there that we're at the height of one right now.
Where was World War I?
World War I is 1917. Okay? So that is all the way back here, and we're going to talk about that one. Okay? So what makes World War I so devastating? We'll get there, okay?
I want to get to 1963. I'm okay, you're okay.
We're going to get that. That's 1969. But it's going to lead up to it, okay? So, on the last 10 years of the upswing into we, so starting here, the last 10 years, so 2013, we'll go here, or this would be in the 40s, it would be 1933, okay, up to here to 1953, okay? So the last 10 years of the swing up into a we, and the 10 years down, there's a subcategory of thinking. So you have two big categories, and then you have four subcategories. At the height of a we, the subcategory of thinking is, I'm okay, you're not okay. Meaning, I'm good, my tribe is good, because we're thinking we. Your tribe is not. We stand in opposition to one another. What this produces is a class mentality. People in society identify with a certain group, and anyone outside of this group is not okay. Does that sound familiar? Yep. Okay. So, what was going on in 1943? We were fighting against communism and socialism, fascism, all of the isms that kill millions of people. What was Hitler's thing? Who was the problem with Germany? The Jews. Okay? Mao Zedong takes over. He makes his own group of people. He makes groups of people in China the enemy. Stalin. What did he do? He made groups of his own people and countrymen the enemy, and he exterminated them. Okay? What are we doing right now? Who's the enemy? We're back to even fighting a war with Russia. Okay? That's happening right now. Is it going to push us into World War III? Quite possibly. We'll get to that. Okay? But what we have is this group think mentality at the height of a we, and that's happening in 1943. So, Jim, here you go. 1963. All right, 1963. So as the pendulum has started to move down to 1963, the pendulum is at the bottom of a downswing. Okay, we're going to skip over 1953. The civil rights movement is at its peak because we just came out of a we. Okay? Civil rights movement kind of starts before this. We just came out of a we. But what is Martin Luther King's message? I have a dream that we will all live together. Why? Because as a black man, I'm okay. As a white man, you're okay. Why is he more famous than Malcolm X? What was Malcolm X's thinking? I'm okay, you're not okay. But Martin Luther King is the one that gets remembered because his message was the message of the time. Love everyone. We're fine. We're okay. We're doing all right. And everyone is okay. We get this. We can see this in the history. What were the TV shows? Leave It to Beaver, Donna Reed. I know. My Three Sons. Exactly. Those were the top 3 shows at the time. Okay? So those 3 shows, everyone is fine. Everyone's doing okay. Yeah, they have their own little problems. I get that. You know, there's a little problem that has to be solved in the episode. I get that. But what the overall message is, we're fine. We're doing great. We're all happy. We're all doing well. And we are beginning. But what's happening is at the bottom there, so we've moved out. So in 1953, this I'm okay, you're okay thinking started. Okay? By 1963, we're in full force on that. Okay? But now it's going to start swinging up into an I'm not okay, you're okay. What we see is in 1965, the Beatles, oh, nobody cheers for the Beatles. It wasn't Elvis, I'm sorry. The Beatles released the song Help. The lyrics are, help me if you can, I'm feeling down, and I do appreciate you being round. Help me get my feet back on the ground. Won't you please, please help me? Artists and songwriters, comedians are always about 10 years ahead of the pendulum. So comedians, artists, they're pushing this. Okay? So in 1965, as we start back up, the Beatles release a song 5 years earlier than the thinking because they're pushing it on I'm not okay, you're okay. Help me get my feet back on the ground. And then the group thinking, the populist thinking, sociological thinking starts to move into I'm not okay, you're okay. But advertisers appeal to the popular thinking of the day. Okay, so they're not 10 years ahead. They're not trying to sell people 10 years from now. They're trying to sell now, right? So you might remember this.
I'd like to buy the world a home and furnish it with love. Grow apple trees and honey bees, so white turtle doves. I'd like to teach the world to sing with me. I'd like to buy the world a home and keep it company as the real. I like to teach the world to sing I'd like to buy the world a coat and keep it company. It's the real thing. It's what the world wants today. It's the real thing. It's what the world wants today.
What is the message? We're all okay. That's 1971. We're fine. Everyone is good. Okay? Now, doesn't matter what race you are, doesn't matter your ethnicity, we're all good. Would that sell today? Mm-mm. Nope. Because today it's what you're against rather than what you're for. Okay? So, now that we moved out in 1963, we're going to go into 1983. We're at the height of a me. Okay? So now we have shifted in the last 40 years from we think to me think. And what that means is don't think of it in terms of selfishness either, because that's not what it is. All it is that the individual is more important than the group. The individual is more interesting than the group. Okay? So that's going to be influence of psychology rather than sociology. Okay? Sociology studies the group. Psychology studies the individual. Okay? So, which is why in the early 1900s, when Sigmund Freud comes out with psychology, where are we at? We're over here. Because what's important? The individual. And now we're back. Okay? So the individual is, as a society, it doesn't mean that, well, I'm more important than my family. Nobody thinks that, right? It's just, as a society, who's more important? All the group or the individual? What's more interesting? What is appealing? What's kind of cool to think about? The way the individual functions or the way the group functions? Okay? So in 1983, what's going on? Well, Ronald Reagan is in office, and we are ending the Cold War. The Cold War that was started when?
1946.
Right. So before. We're ending the Cold War. Gorbachev,
Knock that wall down.
tear down that wall. Yes. All right. We are experiencing some of the greatest financial wealth the country has ever seen. It was in the 1980s. Okay? At the height of a me, we have our biggest technological advances. What was invented in the 80s? Computers, your phones, cellular devices. Our biggest technological jumps, which brings us to what made World War I so devastating. It was different than any war we'd ever fought before. There was machine guns, there was airplanes, there was tanks. The world had never fought that way before. That's why World War I was so devastating. Doesn't mean we don't fight wars at the height of me's. It's just at the we, everybody's dug in. They're ready to go to war. Okay? We're ready to kill everyone else. Okay? My tribe is more important than yours, and I'm going to go after you. Okay? We fight wars all the time. We're man. We're humans. Does that mean that we think is completely dead? No. It's the majority of thinkers are me thinkers. At the height of a we, are me thinkers dead? No. The majority are we thinkers, not me thinkers. Okay? So at the height of a me, we do our biggest technological advances. Why? Because we want to boost the individual. We take people out of poverty in that time. We go, wow, look at what I've invented. Look at what has come about to bring about change. Look at what the individual can do to bring about change. So in 1983, we're at the height of a me. So in 1973, we started the I'm not okay, you're okay, is the sub-thinking. And in the 90s, we will feel this the most. Okay? So, what are the TV shows? Whoops, wrong one. So we have shows, the most popular TV shows are Married with Children, The Simpsons, Roseanne. Okay? You say yuck, right. But all these shows illustrated that everyone was not in good shape. Matter of fact, Married with Children, what's the show about? Al Bundy is everybody's kick, they kick him when he's down. That's what the show is about. I'm not okay. Everyone else is fine. What was The Simpsons about? Everyone else, I'm not okay. My family is not okay. We're struggling. But everyone else seems to be doing just fine. But I'm not. These shows illustrate that. Roseanne, these mothers, Peggy Bundy, Marge Simpson, Roseanne Connor, these mothers are not Donna Reed and June Cleaver. Why? Because thinking changed. Remember, Donna Reed and June Cleaver are I'm okay, you're okay. We're fine. Peggy Bundy, I'm not okay, you're okay. Everyone else is doing better than me. Everyone's doing fine, except me. So what are the songs? In 1987, Michael Jackson releases the song Man in the Mirror. Here's the lyrics. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make that change. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. Right? Now, Michael Jackson, just 2 years after Michael Jackson releases that song, Motley Crue releases a song called Change. And here's what it says. I heard some kids telling me how they've lost all the faith in the way. They've been talking world peace and the wars in the streets. The lines on their faces so deep. A revolution, or reach out and touch the day. We're overdue, child. Change. It's time for change. Nothing stays the same. Now it's time for change. So they released that song. Michael Jackson releases Man in the Mirror in 1987. So we're out of the I'm okay, we're swinging back into a we. They're pushing things. But why is Michael Jackson so far behind? In 89, Motley Crue is pushing the we. They're talking about revolution, people rising up and making change. Michael Jackson is talking about a personal change. Why? Because Michael Jackson at this time is an older thinker. Where does he come from? He has hits in the 60s. He's living in the me. And he's saying, it's now. Now is the time for change, but it has to begin with you. Motley Crue, 2 years later, who are young and in their 20s at this time, put out a song. No, the change is going to come through revolution because they're pushing it. And artists are pushing it. So not everyone is thinking the same thing. Okay? So people can get kind of locked into their way of thinking. especially if that's the time that they grew up in. And we don't understand what's coming next. They don't understand what's going on. A lot of times people don't understand the next generations. Why? Because they're thinking differently. And so, whoops, man, I keep doing that. Sorry. So that song, Change, is starting to push us into the I'm not okay, you're not okay, which will be into full effect by 1993. So let's go look at 1993. In 1993, we're showing sign of group thinking again, and headed out of a me way of thinking, and we are moving toward a we. Bill Clinton will take over the presidency. Okay, he'll become president. And what will he run on? Do you guys remember his slogans? He ran on this: for people, for a change. He also ran on, it's time to change America. Now, it doesn't matter what you think of Bill Clinton, that's what he ran on. What was his message? We are going to change. We are changing. What is he pushing? What are we coming out of? We're looking at this, and we're pushing into a we. So we're moving from a me to a we. Okay? And the sub-thinking starts in 1993. I'm not okay. You're not okay. Right? So, what did George H.W. Bush run on? What was his slogans?
I won't raise taxes.
Read my lips. No. That was his first time that he ran.
Bill Clinton said something else too, but
Yeah, Bill Clinton said a lot of things. I'm just saying his slogans. His slogans, the ear-catching slogans. George H.W. Bush ran on, stand by your president. A proud tradition. It was me thinking. But we're pushing out of that. And I'm not going to say but one of the reasons, and I'm also not giving you a political talk, I'm just telling you what we're seeing. Okay, one of the reasons George Bush Sr. lost was because he didn't appeal to the right way of thinking. Bill Clinton was on MTV, I remember. Bill Clinton was appealing to a younger audience. He was playing the saxophone. I remember that. That's the first election that I remember. Okay, not the first election I was alive for. Okay, but the first election that I remember. We voted in school. Now, there was also, you had Ross Perot who was running, who took a lot of the Republican vote. But the main issue, a lot of what's going on is Bill Clinton is looking ahead. He's seeing what's coming. And he's running on that mentality. What are the TV shows? TV shows are Friends, Seinfeld, and Roseanne Again. What are these shows? Everyone is not okay in those shows. What is Friends based on? It's based on 20-somethings who are living in New York, and all of them are messed up lives. Everybody is not okay in that show. Sure, things work out because we want happy endings, but the show is built on, I'm not okay, you're not okay. Seinfeld is completely that way. That show is about 4 people who are the worst people you probably would have ever met in your life. Now, they do funny things and people can laugh, but the reason they're having such a problem with other people is because everyone else is not okay also. Seinfeld's, the whole thing, he has like 180 girlfriends throughout the show, and he finds a problem with each and every one of them. Okay, there's a problem with them. They only last 1 episode. Okay, so what we see is the television shows are telling us what we're thinking as a society, because we can identify with those people. My life's not okay. I don't feel like my life's okay, but you're not okay either. We're all going through the same terrible thing, right? So that's in 1993. So songs, one of the biggest musical changes I should have put a picture up of this, but one of the biggest musical changes took place in all of rock history in 1993. Because we went from a glam metal pop rock, bands like Poison, okay, to grunge metal, so bands like Nirvana and Metallica overnight. It switched like that. It was that fast. Because glam metal was based on, we're all good. Everything's fine. Okay, we all are sparkly and shiny. Grunge turned into, it was the exact opposite. It was heavier beat. It was more angst. It wasn't about love. It was about other things. It was more angst, and it was dirty. It was grungy. These people hadn't showered for weeks. Okay? And it was overnight that changed. They showed us that things were not shiny and fine. And then we have, listen to this, Alanis Morissette puts out this song called Perfect. And it says, sometimes is never quite enough. If you're flawless, then you'll win my love. Don't forget to win first place. Don't forget to keep that smile on your face. Be a good boy. Try a little harder. You've got to measure up and make me prouder. What does that song illustrate? She doesn't think that she's good enough for her parents. That's what that song is about. So, I'm not good enough. I'm not as well off as you are, as her parents, but her parents, she's illustrating, are terrible people. If that doesn't say anything for the generation of the 90s, the Gen Xers, I'm going to tell you, that's what we thought. Most of my friends felt that song. Okay? Because I'm a Gen Xer, I'm sorry. All right? But that song illustrated a lot of what we were thinking. It doesn't matter right or wrong, it's just what is, right? Okay? So I'm not saying anything about one group or another. This is what was happening, and we can see how those things had changed. So now we move into 2003. 2003, me think is over, and we begin to move into the we thinking. So we're starting down, but like in 1993, though, we started the I'm not okay, you're not okay. So what's going on? Well, George W. Bush will win re-election mostly because he brought the country together in a we way of thinking after 9/11. We were a unit again. We were America. We were a group. It wasn't about the individual. It was about us. They attacked us. It wasn't they attacked you, they attacked us. And so we are going to go to war. We are going to do this. And so that we thinking that he tapped into, that probably any president at his time would have, whether Republican or Democrat, probably would have had the same thing, okay? That we thinking brings the country together. So what are the TV shows? Well, in 2005, the most popular show for a generation is filmed, The Office. Once again, there is no morally outstanding character in The Office, if you ever watched it. No morally outstanding character. But it begins to move into, I'm okay, you are not okay. Because everyone in the show seems to have an idea that they themselves are okay, and if others have a problem with them, it is that person who is defective. If you ever watch the show, that's kind of what it's about. Everybody has their own quirky characteristics, and everyone is quirky in that show. But the show drives that you accept their quirkiness no matter what it is, and if you have a problem with it, then you are the defective one. Particularly, there's an episode where one man comes out as gay, homosexual, And the boss wants to show that he's okay with it, even though he's really not. Okay, he's been struggling to hold it, but he's not okay with it. But he wants to show that he is, so he himself kisses the gay man to show that he is not defective. Okay? The whole show is done this way. Is it funny? Yeah, I think it's funny. I've watched it. It's funny. Okay? But no morally, no good moral character is in this show. They all make terrible decisions. But if you disagree with them, you're the defective one. Okay? And so we see that in the show. In 2010, as we're moving up, as we're about to move into total group thinking, a show named The Walking Dead will premiere. This show will follow a group of people striving to protect each other as a group. So the show is about zombies, right? If you've ever seen it. It's about zombies, but it's not really about the zombies. It's about the group. It's about striving to protect and maintain that group. And even when they come across other humans that are not zombies, okay, other groups, the other groups are wrong and misguided and are not allowed to participate in this group. This group is the group we protect, not that one. They're defective. We're protecting our group. That's what the show's about. And it gives us that mentality that we start to see as we move into this group thinking. Okay? So, in 2013, am I killing you all? You guys okay with this? You following it? You're like, this is the most boring thing, but I'm going to tell you, we're going to see why we're going through all of this. In 2013, we moved into, I'm okay, you are not okay, and we will remain there until 2033. What's going on? Cancel culture. You can't say anything about a group that I don't like. Or about my group that I don't like. Sorry. You're not allowed to say anything about me and my tribe, my group. If you say something that we don't like, we will cancel you. We will get rid of you. We will squash your group. Are we seeing that? That's what's going on. That's what we're seeing. We are beginning to see some of the same things from the 1940s being carried out again. From the 1930s and the 1940s. They're starting to be carried out again. We have songs, we have this song, okay, by Ingrid Andress. Listen to this song. If I bring you home to mama, I guess I'd better warn you, she falls in love a little faster than I do. And my dad will check your tires, pour you whiskey over ice, and take you fishing, but pretend that he don't like you. If we break up, I'll be fine, but you'll be breaking more hearts than mine. You like that song? Know that one? I like that song. It's a good song. It's on mine too. It's on my phone. Okay? I like that song. It's a pop country song. Okay? But what does the song illustrate? Does that song come out in the 1960s? No. Because what was the 1960s? I'm going to love you, and if my parents don't like it, doesn't matter. Okay? What is love grows where my rosemary goes? I don't care about what everyone else thinks. I'm going to love her. Down in the Boondocks. What's that song about? The rich girl likes the poor boy, and rich girl don't care what daddy thinks. But this song is saying, I'm going to protect my family because I can take it if we break up, but they're going to fall in love with you, and I don't want to hurt them. It's about protecting the group. My tribe. Okay? So these songs are pushing the way we think. They're part of what we think at the time of that's going on. Okay? In 2023, this year, we hit the height of a we. And the pendulum is going to start swinging back to a me. All right? So in 2023 to 2033, this is the part I don't want to say to you, okay? Are you ready? We will see the worst time in American history since the Great Depression and World War II. That's probably going to happen. We might, financially, they've been able to keep a Great Depression from happening again. What are they doing? They're bailing out the banks. All that does is it keeps pushing it down the road, okay? But that's what they're doing. They've started that in the early 2000s. Started bailing out banks. George W. Bush was the first one to do it. Let's start bailing out banks, okay? Financially, they've been able to keep a recession from happening for the most part, but it seems like it's happening, okay? Will we see a world war? It's quite possible. You got China and Russia talking. You got Saudi Arabia, who is pulling resources away from America, saying we're not going to sell to you anymore. Okay? We're fighting a war in the Ukraine, right? For what reason? If you, I won't. I'm not going to get political. Okay, you can think of the reason yourself. What's the point of all of this? Well, there's groupthink going on. It's the atrocities. Will there be devastation? Probably. A lot of you have parents that lived through World War II, okay, that fought in that war. It's hard, okay? My kids, your grandkids, my grandkids, they're going to have to live through that stuff. They're probably going to go through a lot of that same stuff again, because that's how that thinking comes out. At the height, it's I'm okay, you're not okay, and everyone is my enemy. Are there different times in history where it seems worse than others? Yes. Okay? But it's during the we that we start our biggest atrocities. Okay? So, in 1517, the Reformation begins. Where do you think that is? It's at the height of a we. 1513. It's the height of a we. Okay? That all happens because we're pulling my group, your group. Okay? This has been tracked throughout all of history. I just covered the last 100 years because you're familiar with it. You heard the stories of the 40s. You've heard the stories of earlier than that. You've lived through the rest. Okay? If you're 80 years old, you're seeing that come full circle. Okay? If you live to be 80, you'll see the pendulum become full circle. So, in 2023 to 2023, it's probably not going to get better. But after 2033, things will start to get better. We're going to start to see, I'm okay, you're okay. Does it look like that now? I don't see that. I'm like, man, we're never getting out of this. This isn't going to fix. My wife and I have these conversations all the time, and she hates my pendulum talk, okay? Because I tell her, it's going to get better. It's going to get fixed. This tribal stuff that we're doing right now, we won't be doing it. Now, what will it look like? Not sure. Okay? But we're going to accept each other. People are going to accept each other. Okay? So, in the 1940s and 1950s, we saw the after effect of World War II, communism. We saw how people started to think and how we moved on into something else. Okay? So, we're going to ask some questions. Why cover this if it's not a church history issue? Well, I'll tell you. Because the reason that we are covering this is because it will clue us in to the times and the mindset of the people that we will discuss in the last 120 years. Maybe we can see how they reacted and how we should respond for our future. Okay? If we understand the thinking that's coming, we can start to go, this is what's going to happen. Now, take for instance, okay, the book, 1983 or 84. Who read it? Anybody read it? Okay. What's that book about?
It's about the future.
Right. When was it written?
1956 or something like
Yeah, in the late 40s, early 50s. Okay, is when it's written. Because what did they see? What did he see? He saw how groupthink, that even America was involved in groupthink, is going to push into total groupthink. Here's what he missed. He missed the 80 years. He saw it jump 80 years rather than 40 and then back. Because we talk about 1984 a lot today, going, groupthink. That term groupthink comes out of that book. He penned that term, groupthink. Okay? So we're seeing a lot of the things today because groupthink is taking over again. And we're seeing a lot of the things that happened in that book, okay, coming today because what he missed was the pendulum. He saw the future. Okay? He saw this is what it's going to push us into. And it did. We got there in a lot of things. So if we understand what's coming next, then we can start to go, what can we do to start to push and say what the thinking is going to be of our grandchildren, and then we can start to do those things now to get them involved in church. Because here's the thing. Music artists are 10 years above or in front of the pendulum. But in my assessment, churches are 10 years behind. If we look at this, okay, so let's ask this. What do you think will be the next phase or phases of the church we'll be moving into the next 40 years? I'll show you the graph again. Okay, so we're talking that right here we're at the top. We're going to start swinging this. What do you think the next phase of church will be?
We're going to start to, we want to be all inclusive. We're going to start to,
Maybe. So, maybe the church will adopt some of that. Especially if the I'm okay, you're okay, movement.
what was the name of a book, by the way, in the 60s? I'm okay, you're okay. That's the name of a book.
I'm totally going to have to buy that book now.
It's not worth it. But then,
But it probably illustrates what's going on at the time and why they're thinking that. Here's what I think, okay? Right about here, so in 2003, okay? Wait, 2003 was here, 13, 23. So in the late 90s, what did we see a push of? Starts with a D and ends in discipleship. Okay? We saw the push of discipleship. Why? Because discipleship is group thinking. We're going to get together in our group. We're going to disciple one another. What was in the 40s and 50s? Evangelism. Why? Because evangelism is you make a decision for Christ. What are we going to start to see? Evangelism. I can already tell you this. We're seeing that push right now. I go to meetings with Oklahoma Baptists, okay? What are they talking about? Oh, we've been doing discipleship. but we're kind of losing evangelism. We need to start talking about evangelism again. They're saying that. Why? Because they're seeing what's coming. They're also seeing what we've neglected. We're doing discipleship well right now, but we need to start doing evangelism again. Here's another illustration. Okay, many of you might remember this. It was about here. Oklahoma Baptists changed their name to Oklahoma Baptists instead of the Baptist General Convention of Oklahoma. Okay, is that significant? No, but what does Oklahoma Baptists say? We're a group. We're together. Then we're just a convention. We're a group. They did a big thing in January. What was it called? The Evangelism Conference. They changed the name of that at about the same time to what? Advance Oklahoma. Because churches are 10 years behind. They needed to do that 20 years ago. But we're starting to go, oh, we're in a group think right now. Let's start thinking group. But it's going to move out. It's going to start moving into a me think. It's going to start moving into individuals. You need to make a decision for Christ. They'll probably change the name again. Somewhere around, 23, so 2040, 2033, 2043, 2063. They're probably going to change the name again from Oklahoma Baptist to something else. I Am Oklahoma. I don't know what they'll call it. The I Am Oklahoma Conference. Okay? Don't worry. None of us will be there. Okay? I'll be lucky if I make it. Okay? But so the next phase is going to have to be an individualistic approach. But we're going to have to go through the I'm okay, you're okay stage. That we're all fine. We're doing great. Shows are going to illustrate that. Television shows are going to illustrate that we're going to be fine. So in this book, they make predictions. Okay? This book is written in 2012. So they ask, what do you think is going to be happening in 2033? One of the guys starts answering. Voters are going to solve the recession problem in 2033. They're going to get those people out and they're going to bring in the other people. They'll solve the problem. They'll fix it, which will push us into a financial stability. That happened in the 80s. We solved the financial crisis of the 40s, of the 50s. The 50s started to become this nice age that people started doing well. The upper middle class flourished. The middle class flourished, started to flourish. Why? Because they solved the problem and they got the people out that created the problem. So we're going to start seeing these things. So there's hope, right? It's going to get probably not so great for a little while. I know. For the next 10 years, it's probably not going to be so great. But we can start preparing now for the next 10 years. What can we start doing? People are going to be in need. Church people are going to be in need. But we have people in place already who can supply some of those needs. Those needs are probably going to be food needs. Okay? But we have people that have chickens and we can share eggs. We have people who have cows who can share cows. We can start to trade with each other. If the church is doing that and the other outside world is going, how are they making it? What are they going to do? They're going to come into the church. If we can start showing that we take care of people and we care about you, one as a group, two as an individual, we can start being on that curve, on that swing of the pendulum. So, why do we make changes? because the thinking, our way of thinking, is not going to be the next wave of thinking. That's why we make changes. All right? And if the church is 10 years behind, then why would that be? Why would the church be 10 years behind?
Because we react instead of...
Oftentimes we react, but church is mostly made up of older people, and that's across the board. Younger people in their 20s are like, I don't need God. And then things start to fail, and like, man, my knee's starting to hurt. I guess I need God, okay? We start to come into the church. Older people start to come in. How many times have you seen that? Well, I didn't go to church when I was young, but I came into the church older. Because older people start to go to church. That thinking that I need to be prepared for what's coming next. I'm going to die. When we're in our 20s, we don't care. We're not going to die. We got all the time in the world. But then we start thinking, well, we're going to die. So let's start going to church. We need to find something, right? Churches are made up of older people. If you grew up in the 60s, you probably think that the individual is more interesting than the group. That true change comes, like Michael Jackson said, by looking in the mirror. You're starting to see this. A lot of the green energy. I'm sorry, I'm taking up. So you guys want me to end it? I'm taking up a lot of time. Okay, I'll just say this. A lot of what's happening with the green energy is they're saying you can't drive your car, you can't fly on an airplane, but the argument against that the other side is saying, well, if you're going to tell me, why are you legislating? If it's so much better, why don't you live that way and show me that that's a better way to live? Right? That's how we ended racism in this country. Is people like Martin Luther King said, we're not going to fight back. We're going to do it the proper way. And they showed us that there's a better way to live. They said, if we live this way, it's better than the way we have been living. And so we push that forward, and then that becomes like, oh yeah, that is better. Okay? So it should be the same way. Okay? So this is why we're doing this. Okay? Why did we cover this? Because we're going to use this as we start to go through the 1900s and we see what is the mentality. What are they thinking? This graph will probably pop back up. Okay? What are they thinking? Where are we in the swing of the pendulum? Okay? Now, here's my disclaimer. I don't think that it's always, I don't know. Is it science? It seems sound. You can track through history. The witch hunts, when did they happen? Height of a we. Okay? The technological advances that we make, the biggest times of peace are usually on the me side. Okay? We can see that. Okay? The other thing is that India and China are at the opposite end. They're not in groupthink right now, they're in me. They're at the height of a me, and they're going to swing like this. Okay? Don't know how that happened. Don't know why that happened. But that happened. That's what's happening in China and India. So Asia, that part, is at the height of a me, which we can see. They're making the biggest technological advances right now. Right? They're doing other things that we're not doing. They're in a time of prosperity. India is growing prosperity-wise like crazy. China is growing prosperity-wise like crazy. What are we doing? We're in recession. Okay? So because we're at different sides. Okay? When the guy was standing in front of the tank in China, in the Beijing Square, where were they? They were at the height of a we. They were in protest. They were in rebellion. Their people were fighting because of the group. Okay? So, neither here nor there. Here's my disclaimer. Okay? We do have some issue. Will this take 80 years to swing? I don't know. Because people are getting so much older now than they used to. Okay? We have the first time in history, we have 6 generations in the church. The first time in all of history, 6 generations are in the church. Never happened. Will that slow it down? I don't know. It might, because we can pass our knowledge on further. Okay? Will that speed up the pendulum? I don't know. May slow it down, may speed it up. What I am saying is we've been able to track this throughout history. That's why we're covering it, so that we can say what were the people in the 1900s thinking as Baptists started to continue and started to roll out things like WMU, Training Union, Baptist Student Union, all of these things. Why did those things come to into existence, and what were they thinking when it happened? That's why we're covering this, so that we can see where they are, so that we can see where we're going. All right, that's it. And I'll prove it. Okay? All right. Let's pray, and then we can continue if you have any questions or discussion.